Lord, I thank you today for who you are, and Lord, thank you for this time of gathering that we may come and learn about words. Lord, again, teach us to pray, Lord, so that we may know how to have meaningful conversations with you, so that, Lord, when we are with you forever, Lord, we can know how to have dialogue. So bless us and keep us around. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. All right. Continuing with the series of prayers, partners, I should say. We talked about watch a couple of weeks ago, and we talked about fasting last week. And this week I want to talk about supplication. And it was really funny because, when it kind of came to me, you will, notice scripturally, and I kind of did a search on it. I think it's like 39 times that supplication and prayer appear together. And so because of that, then it caused me to want to, of course, dive into what is it about supplication and prayer. Because you will find that, especially Paul, when he talks in the New Testament, he talks about, prayer and supplication, and he mentions it in various spots. So again, in looking at it, I was curious, and it was funny because when I looked at one definition, it was like asking. And I'm like, well, okay, I think it's probably a little bit more than that. So again, kind of in researching it in the Hebrew and the Greek, it went into a little bit more because, of course, words, and I said this before, words don't necessarily translate over as they should. So with supplication, again, in the original Greek and Hebrew, really is broken down is supplication is a request asked earnestly. So it is a request, but it's an earnest request. And when I thought about that, it's like, sometimes people can ask for stuff willy-nilly, and hey, can I have, blah, blah. But when the request is earnest, it's just like you can think about Hannah. Hannah's prayer went along with supplication, because when you look at the earnestness of the ask, when Eli approached her about it, her lips were trembling, and not trembling from fear, but trembling from in awe of who you're asking, and thinking about the request, the earnestness of the request being asked of God, because she couldn't just say, well, Lord, I want a baby and just threw it out there. But because her request was so sincere in what she was asking God for, she built a case, if you will, around the whole thing. So we're going to find, whenever you find supplication and prayer together, it's just not thrown out there. There's a case that's built around supplication and prayer. So again, supplication is one of those ones that you don't always, it's like fasting. You don't keep it on the bench all the time. It comes with a purpose, if you will, as opposed to watch. Watch should always be there. The supplication should be used. It's almost like, when I thought about supplication, I thought about supplement. You don't take a bottle of vitamin C around with you, the 100 pills and take it, for the whole day to try to augment your meal. The supplement is there to, if you will, substitute, or I shouldn't say substitute, but it's there to enhance what you already taking in terms of the substance that you're receiving in your body. It's like, and we know that the food that we eat nowadays, again, is beaten out of, the vitamin, really, the nutrients in it is not all there as it should be. So we therefore take supplements to supplement what's not there. Supplication also is there to, if you will, build up your prayer life for something that you really earnestly need and desire of the Lord. David says it like this: one thing I desire of the Lord, and that will I seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Then he talks about it, in the time of trouble he shall hide me. Again, it wasn't that was just kind of thrown together. That linkage was there for a reason, that I may dwell in the house, so that when trouble comes, I will already be in the place where I need to be. That's right, like with all this craziness that's going on nowadays, when our desire is truly focused towards the house. This was a conversation I was just having with one of the members, and he was talking about that, in terms of us being a family. When you learn at the core of what the church value really is, and that it is not a country club, but it really is a family. The way that Paul puts it is that the church is a body fitly joined together. Yes, so when you get all that, and all that really comes into view, kind of like, and I think about this, because it was funny, today, again, it was one of those days, I was like, maybe I should cancel. But when I thought about that, I thought about Eric. And it's crazy because of the stance that he's taken and said, I know I need to be here. And it's not because, I just need to be here, but when your desire shifts, then the one thing I don't like, because, I'm in Hoffman Estates, because of my job, but people that know me know I like to go to the gym as much as I can. Well, because of that, I can. Then I even started thinking, I'm like, could I even look at the export gym? I'm like, there's one on Route 59. I'm like, do I really want to get up an hour earlier than when I'm getting up to get on the road, to get in there, to do that? And I kind of played around with it, like, okay, now I got this new little toy that's coming. I'm like, maybe when I get the new little toy there, that'll give me incentive to do it. But I have such a push and such a desire to do it. Not that, because somebody commented something about my weight and what have you. I'm like, so be it, whatever. I want to make sure my heart is healthy, and that I can be around to walk my granddaughter or see my granddaughter get married. And them have children. So that's kind of, again, we're not going to be here forever, and I know that, but it's like, but Lord, how healthy can I be? And I can't be healthy just thinking about it. I've got to action on it. So likewise, the whole thing with this prayer and supplication, when there's something that you really, really need from God, or you need God to action on, again, not just frivolous stuff, it's got to be something that really matters. That's where supplication comes in. When you're making, when you are making a cause, or a case for what you really need, that's what I already talked about, that the request of making a case around it. So we're going to find, as we go into the scripture, those who use supplication, that was a case. It's amazing how people can have an insincere conversation. Sometimes people just, and again, as we think about our conversation with God, this is why in the model prayer, and this, again, when you look at all this stuff, the model prayer fits in here some kind of way. Our Father which art in heaven. We are beginning to build a case when we acknowledge Him as our Father. So it's funny, I don't know if you've ever done this, and this is just kind of me with emailing people. I always think about, because you see, I don't know if you've ever experienced getting emails from people to where they just and it's no greeting. And to me, that's almost offensive to me. So it's like, okay, so when I'm dealing with people like that, then I don't even address them. But on a normal basis, it was like funny. Yesterday, this lady needed something, but in the beginning, she's like, "Oh, good morning, Ron, and happy Friday." Well, right away, you got my attention because you're saying good morning and happy Friday. One of my pet peeves is when I walk upon people and I greet them and they don't say anything. Likewise, if I'm offended, then how about God? So if I'm going to build a case, then in terms of this whole supplication, then I've got to acknowledge Him as God. I kind of opined over what happened here Sunday, and the whole thing before the message, and Deacon Palmer with the Hallelujah praise, and I'm like, it just took the thing in a whole different direction. And what the Lord said to me is, because you acknowledged me with the highest praise, that is the same word in every language, and that's in that day. Hallelujah, salvation and glory. So it's like you got a way of getting God's attention when you give Him that type of worship and praise to Him. Like our Father, yeah, what do you want? Then you start building the case. Before you ask God for what you want, again, you need to set the tone. Start to build the case. before doing a project, and I'm glad because y'all know this, before you do a project, there are phases to the project before you even start the project. Scoping, discovery, planning, the go, no-go, and the execution. So in that in itself, when you think about the supplication and the building part of our case, if you will, scoping means, first of all, you need to see, is there even a need for what I'm asking? Am I just frivolously asking God for something that is not necessary?
Yes, sir.
Can I really do without, without that piece? We're talking about the one prayer part of being supplication, the earnest ask of God, not just kind of throwing stuff out there, building a case around what is it that I really, really need from God. Because people will ask for stupid stuff. Oh Lord, I need a car, or Lord, give me a job. And in the grand scheme of things, that might not even be in God's will. Sometimes it is God's will for us to suffer. For Paul talked about the suffering of this time is not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be compared when he comes. So again, all the time, the things that we sit up here and ask God for, oh Lord, heal me and all this other stuff. It's funny because you will even find in cases in the New Testament where Jesus goes up to heal people, everybody didn't ask to be healed. Sometimes Jesus just did it because he needed other people to see. Remember the blind man? And he said, why is he blind? What is his mother and father doing? It's like they didn't do anything. It's just that the glory of God may be made manifest. So again, and I don't mean to keep beating a dead horse here, but the whole thing around scoping, what is it that I really need from God? Again, Hannah, if you think about it, she was asking for something that, it would have been nice to have a man-child, but look at what God did in using who he brought out of her. So it was necessary for Hannah to have Samuel so that he could anoint the kings. So again, but she made the case around, so the whole thing of scoping, Lord, I need a son. And if you give me the son, I'm going to give him back to you. So again, discovery, I found out I have a need and I don't have something. So the whole thing around, so when you look at the whole supplication, okay, Lord, I found out you are and I'm not.
Yes, sir.
So that whole discovery thing is, Lord, I lack. And the whole thing, when you think, again, with supplication, Lord, I found out I lack spirituality, or I lack being like you. When that starts to be the discovery thing, seek ye first the kingdom and its righteousness. And the thing about that is twofold. The kingdom and its righteousness. They're married up together, but you got to seek both. You just can't seek the kingdom and not the righteousness.
Yes, sir.
And that's the whole thing again with, when I think about this election cycle that we just had and the craziness around electing 45, it was the white Christian church who ran after the values of morality and the things that President Obama did not do, and the whole gay marriage thing and blah blah, and we need to stand up as the white Christian Anglo church, and and even some of us just running behind it because it sounded like morally the right thing to do. But in looking at discovery of all that, that was not really what the whole thing was about. I was looking at something this morning, and 45 had tweeted about Colin Kaepernick, thank you. And he was saying that, the NFL should just, anybody that doesn't acknowledge, that they're kneeling there, they should be fired and thrown out. There was a speech he gave in Alabama last night. And the reason why I'm going down that route, and I didn't mean to make this political or anything like that, but I know in Alabama, because I was just there, that's why it's like the Bible, Bible Belt and all this stuff. And even my brother, they're involved with this one church. And you got, and again, God, I hate to say it like this, but you got the Caucasian, I'll be politically correct, the Caucasian people that is, 40, 50,000 strong and all this stuff and, blah, blah. You got all these people. And I'm like, but if this man is saying something like that that's not even right, it was more around, when you think about Carlin and what he did in terms of just standing up for the right. He didn't do anything different than Martin Luther King did not do. But then 45 was like, throw him out, fire him, and he used some colorful language and all this other stuff. It was just craziness. And I'm like, and he's right there, and you got these people back there, yeah. And I'm like, but if this was about God and about seeking the kingdom and its righteousness, somebody need to get him told about, you know what, Mr. President, you a liar. You go back on your word. God is not in you. The only thing he's worshiping is the green God. Anything that's going to make him richer than he will say whatever he needs to say to whoever he needs to say to get him on board. But anybody with discernment of Christianity, of the kingdom and its righteousness, wouldn't even get caught up in that foolishness. That's why Jesus, when he was here, and they were trying to get him, what about, Caesar and all this stuff? He's like, run unto Caesar what's Caesar, and unto God what's God. In other words, Caesar, pay your taxes, because that's the law of the land. But when it comes to the things of God, Caesar has no idea.
Yes, sir.
Even though Herod erected the temple, Solomon's temple, and made it more glorious than it was even when Solomon built it. Because again, when you look at the original, when you look at what he did and the enhancements around it, he built the thing up, but he was not building it up for the sake of the kingdom. He was building it up for monument's sake, to say, look at what I did. And I'm not afraid there are a lot of people in church that are building up stuff that is not the kingdom, but is monuments, so that when they die, they can say, ooh, or even when they're alive, ooh, look at what I did. So the discovery phase, Lord, what is it that I truly need? And when you see God, the Lord's going to show you in the discovery phase of what's really going to give him honor.
Yes, sir.
What's going to give him glory. What's going to lift up the kingdom and its righteousness. Then from there, then it's the planning. What do I need to do to get myself in position to ask God? It's funny, the word supplication was mentioned in the book of Esther. In the book of Esther, God is not mentioned at all.
Yes, sir.
It is, it's inferred, but it's not mentioned. As she's going before the king, when she gets the king's attention, it talked about her in supplication in terms of what is it that I need to put before the king. Again, she knew what she needed, and it was that her people needed to be free from the decree of death.
Yes, sir.
But in it, as she gets the king's attention, she uses supplication. So that whole thing of planning, and he's like, oh, Esther, what can I do for you? Oh, just let me do a banquet for you. As we do, and the Lord keeps, and maybe this is more for me, and this keeps speaking to me. Rather than asking God what you can do, what he can do for you.
Yes,
Thank you, John F. Kennedy.
Yes,
ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for it. Why not ask, Lord, how can I minister to you as opposed to you ministering to me?
Yes.
Everybody wants God, Lord. I love the song, Donald Lawrence, Let the Lord Minister to You, powerful song, love it. But then I'm like, okay, why can't we be Mary in that, Jesus, let me wash your feet? Let me do something. Does God need us to minister to him? Absolutely not. He does not need your ministry. But if in the planning phase of Lord, let me do something for you. And here's what's crazy. How can you do something for God? By me ministering to you. It was funny, Brother Gray, in talking to him, he said, you're not like most pastors. And he went on to talk about, a myriad of things. God knows, and it was funny because I was telling him, about, the job and all this stuff. And he said, I know, he said, the Lord gave you a job so you can do what you're doing, and that is to help build up the church financially. He said, because you don't ask for 3 or 4 offerings. He said, we just don't do that. I mean, you hear people, and again, those slam, the folks talking about, come on, chicken dinners, and we got this, that, and going on. And again, I'm not poo-pooing on what anybody is doing with that. If that's what you do, then God bless you. But I know what I said to the Lord in terms of the planning stage. Lord, if this is going to be a deterrent from people really being engaged in serving you, I'm not trying to be funny, but you think about this. We who have been a part of that environment, people that were assigned to the kitchen, when you're assigned to the kitchen on that Sunday, you're missing the service. Even if they got speakers coming through, you're not engaged in the house. So it's almost like you just listening to a baseball game. To me, that is not why we come.
Yes, sir.
If that was the case, then you just turn it on at home.
Yeah.
But we come because Paul talks about forsake not the assembling of yourselves together. My inheritance are among those which are sanctified. So if I'm not really among and I'm on the outer border of it, I'm not able to minister to the Lord as he ministers to me. So again, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent with that. But anyway, but that whole planning shit. So how can I minister? My ministering to God is to minister to you. You need something. The Lord told me, because I knew that a member had a need, he said, stop asking them. Why you ask them and they're going to tell you no? And the Lord chastised me and said, you get up, you just go do and show up at the door. Give them blah, blah.
Yes, sir.
And do. And the thing, and it was funny because after I did it, the individual called back. I said, you know what? I had put that so far out of my mind because to me it wasn't, I don't deserve a medal for that. If that's what the Lord's telling me to do in terms of ministering, thank you, Jesus, for being able to, but Lord, you allowed me to minister. Remember, Jesus said this. He said in that day, they're going to say, Lord, he's going to say, I was hungry and you didn't feed me, and I was naked and you didn't clothe me, and I was in jail and you didn't visit me. Lord, what was all that going on with you? At least one. So somebody shouldn't have to prompt you to do.
Yes, sir.
If you want to minister to the Lord, then start doing. This is, again, in building the case, this is where people miss that whole thing of supplication. I can then, if you will, ask earnestly because now I got a case. It's not, and you don't do it to build a resume with God. You ain't doing it just, well, Lord, this is not community service.
Yes, sir.
Okay, the judge ordered me, now I got 30 hours of community service to do. Supplication is not that. It's all about, it's funny because Job, when he goes through the case building with God, because he said, if I knew where I could find you, I'd order my cars before your seat, I'd start an argument. Well, what is your argument? And it's not like, people think of argument being, legally, an argument is just the facts of what has happened.
Yes, sir.
And you just lay it out. Ain't nobody sitting there yelling and hollering. You don't find the prosecutor yelling across the room, I'm giving my argument, blah, blah, blah. The argument is I'm going to lay it out. Here's the facts, and here's the evidence.
Yes, sir.
When you've got facts and evidence, I'm going to talk about this later. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, and the evidence of things that's it. Yeah. When you've got the evidence, your argument can be substantiated. And when you go to God in terms of supplication, now I can truly tell him. Job said, of the poor, I gave to them. The old, I watched out for them. I washed my steps in butter. I was not frivolous with what you gave me, but Lord, even my children, I sacrificed for them
Yes, sir.
when they probably wouldn't even think about sacrifice. So Lord, I did all this stuff. So I'm laying out the argument. After that, so after the argument's laid out, then you've got to go no-go for a project. It's like, okay, either we're going to go forward with this or we're not.
All right.
Sometime in the planning stage with God, sometimes the answer is no, after you've done all that. Don't get mad. God obviously, because if you notice in a go, no-go decision, it is senior management and the executive sponsor that usually makes that decision. And the reason why they're doing it, they know something you don't know. When God says no, he knows something you don't know.
Yeah.
And there's a reason behind why I'm telling you, we're not going to proceed with this. We're going to scrap it. Have you seen some things come to fruition years later that you asked God for years ago?
Amen.
And it's like just now? You're like, well, what was that all about? Because at the time, you were ill prepared to handle what you asked for. And the Lord's like, I didn't forget what you asked for. I was waiting for you to grow up.
All right.
Once you grow up, then you will start saying, I'm a witness of this. There are things that the Lord, sometimes I almost feel like, Lord, this is just too much. And at the time I was like, but why? You weren't prepared for it. You were not ready to handle what I was going to give to you.
Amen.
And then it's the execute stage of it. All right. Supplication gives you the grace and the patience to get through the phases. Oh my God. Supplication gives you the grace and the patience to get through the phases. In 1 Kings 8, 28, 30, 33 through 38. I'm going to read this, but the backdrop of this, and this was even in 1 Chronicles, and I didn't bring it down because it pretty much was the same thing. This is where Solomon has now built the temple to God. And it says this, and this is Solomon. He said, "Yet have thou request unto the prayer." Yet thou respect unto the prayer of thy servant and his supplication, O Lord my God, to hearken unto the cry and to the prayer which thy servant prayed before thee today. And hearken thou to the supplication of thy servant and of thy people Israel, when they shall pray towards this place, and hear thou in heaven thy dwelling place. When thou hearest, forgive. When thy people Israel be smitten down before the enemy, because they have sinned against thee and turned again to thee, and confess thy name and pray, make supplication unto thee in this house. Then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sin of thy people Israel, and bring them again unto the land which thou hast given unto thy fathers. When the heaven is shut up, and when there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, if they pray towards this place and confess thy name, and turn from their sin, when thou afflictest them, then hear thou in heaven, and forgive the sins of thy servants and thy people, that thou teachest them the good way wherein they should walk, and give rain unto the land which thou hast given unto the people for an inheritance. If there be in the land famine, and if there be pestilence, blasting, mildew, and locusts, and if there be caterpillar, and if their enemies besiege them in the land of their cities, whatever plague, whatever sickness there be, what prayer and supplication soever be made by any man or by all of thy people Israel, which shall know every man the plague of his own heart, and spread his hands towards this place. Then the heavens, then this 1 Kings 8, 49, 52, 59, 63. And I can give these to you later. Then hear thou their prayer and their supplication in the heavens, in heaven thou dwelling place, and maintain their cause, that thine eyes may be open unto the supplication of thy prayer and unto the supplication of thy people Israel, and to hearken unto them in all that they call unto thee. And let these my words, wherein I have made supplication before the Lord, be nigh unto the Lord our God, day and night, that he maintain the cause of his servant, and cause the people Israel at all times as a matter shall require. And Solomon offered sacrifice and peace offering, which he offered unto the Lord, 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the children of Israel dedicated the house of the Lord. Why did I go through all that? It's pretty much, and I know it was a lengthy read, if you notice what Solomon is praying, and again, he has now erected the temple. What was going on even prior to the first reading in, I think, 1 Kings 8, I think it may have been around 7 or what have you, to where he talks about, in terms of making a case, he said, Lord, I can build a temple which can't contain you. And I know that. But then he said, but Lord, if you would just honor this place that we built.
Yes.
And then he talks about, Lord, even, because look at, he's prophetic in what he's asking. He says, even when they sin against you, let the prayer and this supplication go before them. So even as the enemy conquers them, Lord, be merciful and bring them back to you.
Yes, sir.
So Solomon, and that's the thing about supplication that I wanted to note. Supplication is not selfish. Supplication always will involve somebody or something else. It's not about you when there's supplication that's going up before God. Because even with Hannah, it may seem like, because it's like, okay, she was ridiculed as not being a mother, but still at the end of the day, it's like, Lord, I want this man-child so I can give him back to you. Not knowing what the greater good was behind all that. That's why it was a go in terms of the decision making, because the executive sponsor said, and I'm going to use him to anoint kings. I don't like it because I've given y'all judges. You're going against my will, asking me for a king. But if it be so,